Hey guys, and welcome back to Brexit. Brexit England, Northern Ireland and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit England, the Bank of England has had to step in to help Mickey and Minnie. That's the two mouses. Or you could call them Kermit and Miss Piggy, because they're a pair of idiots. But today I'm going to start with a joke. When is a budget not a budget but an event? When it's done by a black guy. And that's not even funny. That's not funny at all. Right? And how do you think black people feel about having this klutz as our first black chancellor of this country? How do you think we feel? You know, this guy's an idiot. But it's not as if to say, yeah, that Liz Truss is doing blondes, right, any favours here. Right? So let's not get that twisted. It's not just us. Right? You know, the blondes are represented by Liz Truss. Now, you see, the thing is, what I was thinking, right, is Kwarteng, right, is the most successful black politician ever. And that's only because he's a chancellor, so he's had the highest position, right? You know, like the highest position an Asian guy's held in this country has been chancellor, because we've had the little brown guy, not my words, right, and then we've had Pinhead Zippy, and who was just temporary, right, and also the original Zippy, Savage Javid, right. So remember Nazim Zahawi, Pinhead Zippy, right, but now I find myself, right, having to look, right, around the world, right, at the most successful black politician, right. So, what we normally do these things, we normally say, well, let's go over to America, let's judge it there. So, the most successful black politician in America. Can I go with Dr. Ben Carson? He's a dick. That would be perfectly right. But the difference with Ben Carson, is he's a surgeon, and he's I think he was like the first ever surgeon to do like a heart transplant, I think, while the person was pregnant. I think he done something like that. He done a heart. He was the first person to do some type of heart transplant. Do you know what I mean? But when you look at him in like his common sense terms, the man's a damn idiot, right? But you know, he is a brilliant man. So it could even be unfair to putting Kwarteng against him, even though he's a dick, right? But then we'll say no, because I hear what you're saying. I hear you saying no, it's Barack Obama, and now you're asking me to put Kwarteng up against Barack Obama. Seriously, right? I'm just going to judge it on this, right? Which one of them do you think would look the best in chinos and sandals and socks? No, it's obviously Obama, isn't it? It's obvious, because probably the only man in the world who could probably pull that off, which nobody should ever do. But it would probably be Obama, probably the only person in the world that could probably pull that off. Do you know what I mean? You know, so yeah. So I don't really want to judge Kwarteng against Barack Obama, because that would be unfair. It would be unfair on Barack Obama for even considering judging the two of them. Right, but the Bank of England now has had to step in, and you know what really gets me about this whole situation, right, is this, right, is these people will not appreciate it, and they won't really report it. Well, they've got to report it, right, but they won't report it in the way that it should be reported, because this is not the first time this happened. This happened just after the Brexit referendum, right. The Bank of England had to step in, or things would have been so much worse over Brexit. And if you think, right, that things couldn't get any worse than they actually are, if the Bank of England didn't step in to help the government out at that stage, right, things would have been absolutely catastrophic, right, when it comes down to it, right. Now, and these people, Boris Johnson will just ride along those tails, say, well, it's my policies that's done it. And it's not. It was the Bank of England. Just like now. What's going to happen now? It's exactly the same as going to happen now, right? Liz Truss, because she's already been on, she's done eight interviews this morning, all on minor BBC stations, right? But some of them really took her to task. One of the women said to her, listen, why is it, right, that someone who earns £1 million a year, right, is getting £55,000, right, in tax cuts, right, and like someone who earns like £20,000 a year, say like a teacher, a teaching assistant, or a shop assistant, they're going to get £157. And Liz Truss was like, no, well, the measures that we have brought in, she said those figures are wrong because the measures, no, because plenty of economists have said that those are the actual figures. That's where people are getting these figures from. They're getting them from economists. They're not sitting there with a calculator and calculating it out themselves. No, they're not doing that. They're getting the figures themselves, right, from economists, and all the economists are saying the same thing. If you're on £1 million, you're getting 55 grand, right? If you're on like 20 grand, you end up about 150 odd grand. Sorry, 150 odd pounds, right? So there's no if or buts, right? But Liz Truss just lying her head off, just like she done that when Rishi Sunak, because I was watching the interview this morning when her and Rishi Sunak was in one of their foolishness hustings. And she was just up there, just lying about everything. Remember how they used to just lie about Brexit? How they you say something to Nigel Farage. You say to Nigel Farage, Nigel, you do realise that if we Brexit, right, then there's going to be loads of little boats coming up from France. Our project fail. It's nothing to do with that. This is just lies by the left wing. Those woke fools. That's what Nigel would be. Right? And that's what Liz Truss just done to Rishi Sunak, because Rishi Sunak predicted all of this. He said this is what will happen, right, if you go down the route that she wants to go down, right? So this is why you've got all the people like the IMF and now the Bank of England, right? But the IMF had to bail this country out before. It's not the first time, so they've had to bail this country out before. So if things really get really bad, that's who they'll have to step in to get the IMF to bail them out. But right now, the Bank of England has bought up £60 billion worth of debt and bonds from the government, right, to make sure, right, because yesterday, right, what a lot of people don't actually realise is that the pensions virtually bankrupt yesterday. The whole pension system virtually bankrupt yesterday. That's why the Bank of England had to step in. Because it's not like your banking crash. Yeah, when you say that. I remember when who was it? That bank that went and everyone was outside there waiting, trying to get their money out. It's not like that, because remember when Gordon Brown stopped the banking crash, right? That would have been basically the whole banking system, right? And that's why the government couldn't allow it, right? But when it was what were they called? I've thought of this morning, but the little building society, isn't it? When they went down, they could allow them to go down because it's just one, but they couldn't allow the whole of the banking system to go down, because you can't have, right, especially in Britain, you can't have people, outside the banks, right, wanting every penny they've got from the bank, right? You can't have that. Not here, right? That happens in third world countries. Oh, hold on, we're heading that way, so it could happen here. And welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages sent me. And a special thanks here to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that signed up. So thank you so much for that. I'll go through all your messages. I'll answer as many as I can. But I will like all your messages for definite. Coolio has died age 59. Remember him? Gangster's Paradise. Yeah. Coolio, age 59, not even 60 years old. And died of a heart attack. Was apparently at his friend's house, and went to the bathroom and he was found unresponsive. It's a real shame, do you know what I mean? Because I think that was his biggest tune. Obviously, Gangster's Paradise was his biggest tune. But it's a real shame, because he was on Big Brother in this country. But I'm sure he had to leave early because he was disrespectful to women. And they probably knew, right, that he was like that, and that's probably the reason why they brought him and put him on Big Brother, because that's why they do it. That's why they do shit like that all the time. Well, I don't know if you've seen this story out of America, but this is it's horrific. A cop in America parked his car on a train line with a suspect in it, a young Hispanic lady, right? I think she's like 22, I think, something like that, right? Parked his car on a train line, right? with her in the back, right, with the doors, with the child locks on, right. The woman saw the train bearing down towards her, right, and she's frantically trying to get the police officer's attention and trying to get out of the car. Right, the train smashed into the car, right, tore the car to pieces. I think it was probably luckily for her, she was in the back of the car, and the train probably has hit the front of the car. Because when I first saw it, I just said, well, she's dead. Until they said, oh, she's in hospital and she's broke 9 motherfucking ribs, right, broken arm, and a few other things. A few other things was broken, right. But sternum was broken, right. Now for me, right, this is like, this is, it's. I could only think that this guy's done this on purpose to her. Do you know what I mean? Because, what kind of a fool leaves their car on a train track, right, in the night, right? When you know it's a live track, you're a police officer, you must know that's a live track, right? Most police officers stop people in their area, right? So we know that, this police officer probably was in his area, knows these are live trains, right? So you say, well, why would you have done this? Is this on purpose? Is that what this is? Because unless you are one of the most stupid people in the world, and I guarantee you that this guy is a Donald Trump supporter, right? And he supports Brexit. He's an American cop, right? But I'll tell you this, right? You could only be that stupid, right, as a Brexiter, right, and someone who supports Trump, right, to leave, right, your car on a train line when you know that trains are running. Yeah, and you think to yourself, hold on, didn't you hear the train coming then, or? Because a lot of times you can hear these trains coming from at least a mile away. I know they get to you really quick, but that would have given you enough time. You hear the train coming, that would give you enough time, right, to go and open the door and get the woman out the car. But seriously, I think that this guy they should make sure, yeah, that this guy, yeah, suffers some serious criminal cost for this, because this is it's neglect. Right? It's a criminal neglect, and it's a terrible thing to happen to this young lady. Could you imagine being in a fucking car and you see the train coming down and you can't get out of the car because the fucking child locks are on? Jeez. Right? And Roger Stone, friend of Donald Trump, insurrection acquaintance, right, was overheard. This man's overheard saying, you know what, he needed a pardon, right, because a lot of people are going to go to prison, right, if this all goes wrong. And he's speaking about the damn insurrection, and this is weeks or months before, because you see these people, because they're so entitled, and they don't care about telling the people about criminal offences they're going to commit, or they've committed, or they may well commit. But so he was getting into. So he had a Swedish or one from Switzerland TV company following him about, right, in everything he does. So he's basically telling people, listen, you know what, if this all goes wrong, yeah, they're gonna, the DOJ are gonna come for us. So these guys all knew exactly. So when you see people like Steve Bannon and all them and say, oh well, they're coming up, right, they knew from long before that the DOJ would be coming for them if they done because they knew what they was doing was criminal. I mean, the DOJ, right, only comes for you if you're a criminal or you're black. Right? Those are the 2 times they come for you. Right? But so these guys, they all knew what they was doing. They all knew there was a good chance they could all end up in prison. So let's hope, right, that what they knew before actually happens to them, because that's where they deserve to be. They all deserve to be in prison. I don't even know why they're even out of prison all now, even Donald Trump. This judge Cannon, the one who done the ruling in Donald Trump's favour. I mean, this woman is making a real fool of herself, right? She's going against everything, right? So much so that the special master that was appointed, Donald Trump appointed, because Donald Trump thinks to himself, well, you know what? If he thinks all these judges that he's appointed, right, he thinks that they're all out there to do him favours. And you say, well, there's a lot of people out there, yeah, once you've put them in the position what they wanted to be in, right, they don't do no favours. What do they do you favours for? You ain't got no power over them. Do any favours for, right? But so far, it's only this one woman judge that he's found that would go and do really stupid. I won't be surprised if this woman doesn't get herself struck off, because what she done was just so ridiculous. It was just so ridiculous, and even the special master has had to pull her up on it now and say, "Listen, what are you doing?" So we'll have to see how that situation works out. Hurricane Ian has hit Florida hard, right? Cars floating down the, but the federal government said, listen, you know what? Don't worry, we're going to be there for everybody. Russia have accused America of damaging the Nord Stream pipe. And say, well, why would America want to damage Nord Stream? I mean, you'd be better off blaming us. You'd be much better off blaming Britain, because they normally blame us. So they'd be much better off blaming Britain. But I think because if they blame us, then they've got to come. They've got to say, you know what, that's it. We're gonna have a fight with you. They've got to do that. But if they blame America, they can just say, it was America. It's them, right? And Americans say, well, you're being ridiculous. But I think, right, the only people who damaged it would have been the Russians, because I think they're making a point. But all now, there's gas like leaking into the waters. You know what I mean? So obviously that's not a good situation. Chris Philip MP. I don't know if you've seen this guy. This is the most stupid politician in the country. And I mean, this guy's going up against Nadine Dorries for this, right? But this guy's really thick. I mean, this guy is as thick as two very, very, very short planks, right? Chris Phillips, right, on Friday, when they had when there's a budget, not a budget, but an event, right? When they had that, right, he wrote a tweet. It's fantastic to see how the pound is bouncing up, right, in light of this mini budget. And obviously the pound started nosediving 2 or 3 seconds later, right? So this fool had to go and remove the tweet, right? And now I've heard this guy on the radio. So this fool's on the radio this morning, right, trying to defend the absolutely indefensible, right? Only, right, I don't get this, right? Because this guy's telling us, the Bank of England are wrong, the IMF are wrong, and all the economists, they're all wrong. And the people who are right, is Kwarteng, right, and pencil neck tin Lizzie Truss. They're right. Even though, right, he's seen, the pound is at about 105 now. Right, so that I don't know if that's going to be its level where it's set at, but if you notice how the banks have taken away all of their products, they're taking away so much of their products, right? Because the banks know that something is coming. Obviously, they a lot of them are, it's the Bank of England's in control of interest rates, so they obviously know that something really horrible is coming to hit the people of this country. So they've taken away all of their products, because obviously they don't want you to get into a product now, and then in a few weeks time, right, the things, they can't actually give you those interest rates that they said they could have given you at that time. So you see, Chris Phillips, he's going against absolutely everything, right? And this man, right, is so, when I tell you, his life just seems so ridiculous. He seems like he's I don't even know who votes for these kind of people, but this man, right, I'm telling you, the people who voted for him have got to be even more stupid than him, and that really is saying something, right? But obviously, as I said, he's looking like he's going to take the title from Nadine Dorries as the country's most stupid politician, because Nadine Dorries, she's like the world's most stupid politician, so she's on a complete different level. But he can take the UK title away from her without taking her world title. Liz Truss has been told to sack Kwarteng. I'll tell you something, right? If this motherfucker gets sacked this quick, right, this is going to do the plight of black people no good at all, right? None at all, right? To think this is what we've given the world for our first black chancellor in the UK. I'm feel really sad. And Kwarteng has sacked the chief advisor to the Treasury. because obviously the chief advisor of the Treasury must have said to her, "What the fuck do you think you fools are up to? Right, you're going to crash the economy and the country. We're in a bad enough position as it is. Right, your predecessors have already fucked things up. Right, they've already driven off the cliff, and now you want us to hit the ground." That's what the chief to the secretary must have said to him. Right, and Kwarteng said, "Well, you are fired." Just like, in this kind, I'll tell you something, right? A lot of the newspapers at the moment are. A lot of newspapers are still backing this at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously they've got to. Because Liz Truss, right? Liz Truss has been told to sack Kwarteng, and you know that she will do it. She's one of the people. She will do it. If things, she's just got him there so she can say, "Well, it's his fault. It was the black guy." That's what Liz Truss could do anytime soon, and just get rid of him. Right? And another story that I've heard, that Rishi Sunak, right, is refusing to attend the conference next week, right, because he said, "You know what, Liz Truss needs to own all of this, because I did warn her about it, so she needs to own it." So he's refusing to go. And look, I've already gone over. Right, there was two aircraft had a minor collision at Heathrow Airport last night. Why are we talking about this? I don't know, but for some reason it was on the news, and they just clipped wings and said, "Well, okay." Probably gonna need some gaffer tape and some body filler, and I'm sure it will all be all right. Let's move on to some Brexit stories quickly. The Herald. Me neither. The Tories should be mortified with the nosedive of sterling since the Brexit vote, because that's the truth, right? Since Brexit, right, the pound has really been smacked to pieces. It's been treated like a prostitute you can take and beat up. That's how the pound's been treated. The EU's new biometric entry system could increase multiply queues at Dover. And I say, well, I wonder if these people are doing this on purpose. I wonder if the EU are purposely sticking it to us, right, to make sure that other countries don't look and say, "Oh, we don't want none of that." Right? We're not going to go and put economic sanctions in front of ourselves, right? Oh, no. Right? But that's obviously what we done. And the Tories' hostility to experts continues. Right to the bitter end, says iNews. Me neither. Right? Now, and they've put that there with a picture of Lord Frost. And I don't know why, probably to make the point. Right, this is the man who brought us Brexit, right? And Lord Frost has also one who's coming out, right, and talking about the IMF, right? And to the IMF do not know what they're talking about, and they're a load of lefty woke fools. And my friends, I have to bow out of here because I've already gone over. This, my friends, is by any means necessary. I'm the MC John Ribbs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.